Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And today it's a little chilly out and having a good day, though. So to start out, I'm sitting in the sanctuary of the Fledge. I've got all this great art around me. I've got the plants in the background. We're planting more plants today. So we're excited about this spring and what's happening with our food security work that we're doing. Today, I've got my headset on as usual, brown hair, brown eyes. What's up, Mona David? I'm wearing a Vans kind of skateboarding loose shirt today because I'm freezing. We're not turning the heat back on. We're tired of heat in this building. So let's get into it. Today on the show, we have our great friend, our longtime friend, Mr. Wesley Ma. How you doing, man?
Hey, Jerry, how's it going?
It's going great. What you up to? What you been doing today?
Man, I've just been enjoying this wonderful DC weather. I like it a little bit more than Michigan. It's a little bit warmer, and just a regular day in the life of an entrepreneur.
Are those apple blossoms popping yet?
Yeah, the cherry blossoms.
Or cherry blossoms?
I think the cherry blossom thing, I think, is it's a misconception. They're really only alive for like a week or something, and that's why everybody's like, I thought it was like a whole season. They're like cherry blossom season, but it's really like cherry blossom week. So I think they're all gone now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's like 40 or 45 degrees here right now. What is it in DC?
It is 75.
Damn, that sounds nice. That sounds nice. So we're going to get to DC and Lansing and all of that in a little bit. But before that, we'd really like to know about you. Tell us about like where you were born and raised and where'd you go to school and all that.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the Metro Detroit area in Michigan. I went to schools all throughout my time in the West Bloomfield School District, thanks to my parents. Shout out to my parents for taking that loan out to moving us to West Bloomfield. And one of my dreams has always been to pay off their mortgage because they're still working. So big shout out and big emphasis on education in my family. And yeah, but I think that's it. Yeah.
So you and I met. You were going to you went to school after West Bloomfield, right? Mm-hmm. You and I met, I think, when you were going to MSU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So tell us about why'd you pick MSU? What was your degree? And
so I picked Michigan State University because actually growing up, I wanted to be an ambassador or a foreign service officer. So I wanted to improve the effectiveness of deliverance of foreign aid to other countries. And so like all my internships, all my jobs were revolving around that. And so, and MSU had the best supply chain management program in the country. And I was like, well, if I can master that, then I could figure out how to deliver more effective foreign aid.
Yeah. So and I love their supply chain program. They are one of the best in the world. And did you study that?
Yeah. I studied supply chain and entrepreneurship. I had a minor in international business, but I dropped it so I could graduate.
And so you had this path in supply chain and foreign aid. You had entrepreneurship. What happened?
So I had, well, in terms of like, I guess I could talk about jobs in my career trajectory, about everything that was going on. So I had 4 internships in college. And in high school, I worked as a camp counselor at the Jewish Community Center. That was my first job ever. I worked in the Philippines at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cardinal Health, and the United States Agency for International Development my very last year in DC. So I was actually on the path to becoming what I wanted. And then it just so happened that year that Trump came into office. But I mean, me and everybody else thought that Hillary was going to win and she was going to expand the foreign aid program. So I was like, that's awesome. And then my manager at the time informed me like, hey, we won't have enough budget to bring you on full time, and then I was like, okay, I need to kind of figure life out again. So yeah.
So tell us about HealthOpX. How did that get started out of all of this?
Yeah, so HealthOpX really started, it also started when I was in college.
Am I saying it wrong? Should I say OpX?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard name to say. So I've been meaning to change it for a while, but I think it's just, we've already gotten so much traction that it's like, I don't know if we can change it anymore.
I don't think you should change it. I like it.
So, wait, what was your question again? You said, tell me about HealthOpX. Okay, yeah. So HealthOpX was started with me and some university classmates of mine, so 4 other people, all minorities. 2 of them first generation college students. So we had a really cool team, and we really wanted to solve these big problems in health. And we eventually pivoted and
no.
Oh, you want to see
I want
the genesis?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know how much time we have in the show. That's why I'm like, oh, can you cut stuff out, or can we?
We're gonna be good. We're gonna be good.
Okay. So we first started off. I started a blockchain. Well, every startup, I was like the CEO, the person. So they're all kind of like my ideas until our last one, which is a collective. So our first one was a blockchain software company that handles medical records, so you could transfer medical records instantaneously. Because I think like 40% of hospitals still use like a fax machine. And so we're like, we could create this autonomous system where you could kind of move the medical records and not have anyone worried about security. They actually have interns like print out and fax medical records from hospital to hospital. So like, that's so ridiculous. And so the reason why that failed, if we're jumping into why each of them failed, is because the cost was just so astronomical. I mean, this was back in 2016, 2017. And so like the efficiency was just not there at the time with the technology. And so, but we got all this interest and we're like, oh wait, like we forgot that we didn't actually test it out. So, and then next after that, we did a pharmaceutical startup very briefly. And it was to be able to tell the price of a drug before you pick it up, because doctors prescribe these drugs. Sometimes they're like $200-$300, but they don't know that. And so we wanted to create a connected system with pharmacies because it had a direct correlation with medical adherence. Because if something was too expensive, like you're not gonna pay that amount of money. So they were all very like good problems, I think. Yeah. And then the one before this one was in medical tourism. So like I think you know about it too. And the reason why we started that is because the cost of surgery here in the U.S., like if you want to get a hip replacement, knee replacement, it's like $50,000, $20,000. And even with insurance, it's like 10,000. So we created this system, and I traveled to different countries where we could do just like 5,000, 4,000, where you would get the surgery, recovery. You'd stay in a 5-star resort. You get the best doctors in the world that went to Johns Hopkins, whatever, but just wanted to go back in their home country. So we created like a kayak for international, medical travel. And then we stopped doing that because we were like, if we mess this up, like someone could die from a medical complication, And also like we didn't know about any of the legal things. We were just like tech people. We saw a cool opportunity. I preemptively set up all these relationships. And then it's like, are we really mature enough to run something like this? Because we're all very empathetic people, which is why all the startups revolved around helping people. And we're like, even if we mess this up for one person, I don't know if I could live with that,
Yeah.
So that brings us to our current startup, which is, we help create these value-based relationships between community-based organizations, health systems, and insurers. And that's because me and my co-founders were all second-generation Americans, or we're kind of first generation for a lot of things, whether it be college or living here. And so we really noticed the amount of, I would say, the amount that our parents and our family members lean on community-based organizations like a church, like a volunteer ethnic organization. And so we're like, we had to help our parents through all of these things, but we really, at the end of the day, lean on the community. And to give you an example of that, my parents moved here from Taiwan. And this is segueing into another whole thing. So if we don't have time, just let me know. But
we have this is super interesting. So we have time.
Okay, so my parents moved from Taiwan, and it's an even crazier story of how my family originally got to Taiwan. It has to do with my grandpa being a spy against the communists and fleeing and getting stranded on an island, traveling around Taiwan because the communists were looking for him because he was a spy. But I won't get into that. So my parents, they moved from Taiwan.
Your grandfather's a spy, and you're not going to tell us anything about it?
Well,
no, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, so I could tell that story if we got time. But so yeah, it has a funny segue into like why my dad never was able to eat fish, because my grandpa got stranded on an island for like a week with a boat full of people, and unfortunately they had to just survive off fish and like boiled water, like through the sun or something like that. And a lot of people died, and so after that he was like, I'm not eating fish ever again. So then he bounced around to different places of Taiwan, was a janitor, and then this girl was getting bullied at one of the schools he was janitoring in, and he spoke to her in his dialect, Shanghainese, because there weren't a lot of people that spoke Shanghainese in Taiwan, mostly like the southeastern Fujianese or Hokkien or things like that. And so the little girl's dad ended up being like someone who used to be in the Chinese government before Mao took over. And he was like, I can't believe you're still alive. Like, your family's looking for you in China. And if you want like a better job, you can go ahead and work for me. And so like that's how my dad or my grandpa eventually met my grandma and all that stuff. And so yeah, that was a huge segue. You could definitely cut that out. But anyway, so my parents moved from
We're live,
Taiwan.
man. We can't cut anything out.
Oh, okay. So my parents moved from Taiwan to the south side of Chicago. And you might be thinking, like, south side of Chicago, like in the late 80s, like, why would they move there? Early 90s, because it was the crack era. And it's really because the community was somebody that they knew was like, hey, move here. And that's really how it was for, I think, a lot of people in Asia and other countries where they just know one person and they're like, hey, you should move here. So then they moved away from there because one of their friends got killed, unfortunately, to the east side of Detroit. And you might be thinking, south side Chicago to east side Detroit, what are they doing? And it was another instance of one of their friends was like, hey, you should come move here. The cost of living is cheap and all that stuff. And so eventually they were able to make their way. My parents really lucked out because they couldn't find a job. Their English was terrible too. And to be honest, it's still not that good. So one of their friends, they lived in an apartment together in a condo in Detroit. And they shared the living room. So my parents slept on one side of the living room, another family slept on the other side. And every day my mom would be she would be a hater because the other family would be able to eat better food. And she'd be like, what do you guys do for a living? And they're like, oh, my husband just learned how to do computer programming. And they're like, what's that? And they're like, you should really get into it. Your English doesn't need to be that good. You just need to be good at programming. So my parents learned programming, and that's how they got their first jobs, and how we were able to even afford the down payment of, moving, because they were able to get on that career path. Otherwise, I think they would have I don't even know. They don't even know what they would have been. Like, you know, because I think it's like the American dream was attainable for them through like luck, but unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of people. You know, so I'm really grateful for my parents for sacrificing for so long. And I don't even know what I was originally talking about anymore. So,
Well, I'll get us back on track in a second, but I think that is an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it sounds like a movie.
for a lot of people, it is for sure. So,
So, you know, with and your parents are still in the Detroit area?
I don't know. They
No.
they took out that loan to so that we could go to West Bloomfield High School
Well,
in
yeah, West
West
Bloomfield.
Bloomfield. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, but they're still in that area.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I
Um,
definitely want to pay off that mortgage, but yeah.
you got time, right? I'm
hmm
sure. Okay. Uh, so HealthOpX, tell us how, like, how do you engage? Give us an example. Maybe
hmm
that's the right. Give us an
hmm
example of how or what you guys do and maybe how you make money.
Right. So right now, what I'm planning, especially for Lansing, is I'm planning on approaching a hospital and health insurer in the region. So to give an example of how I even know how to do this is because we're fortunate enough to be in a program in DC where we're mentored by Blue Cross Blue Shield Care First. So Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield around here is the biggest health insurer in the Mid-Atlantic region, spans across the DMV area. It's gigantic. And so I get to work with their senior director of innovation, and I'm talking to the chief quality officer on Thursday of their Medicaid program. So I'm just learning all these things. And what I'm planning on doing is we create this value-based system between community-based organizations, health systems, and insurers. You might be wondering, what does that even look like? Well, I know, and my co-founders know from personal experience, it's the community-based organizations that really help keep a community healthy. Like when someone asks, like, "Hey, what doctor should I go to?" What they don't call the hospital, they don't call the insurance company. They talk to people in their community, and so we're like the community-based organizations have the unique are a unique pillar in resource distribution, information distribution, and a conduit to other resources for referrals. And so we say, community-based organizations, you do what you do, but maybe have goals towards health that directly financially benefit health systems, insurers. And we go ahead and set up a system where you could get easily reimbursed in these contracts because I know that a community organization, they're not going to have a legal team. They're not going to have someone that has the time to set this up or even create software to make this easy. So we're really just giving that for free. And then we get paid through health systems and insurers. And so that's the system that we want to set up in Lansing. So what I want to do first is bring together all the community-based organizations I know and that are interested and kind of say, hey, health system, McLaren, Sparrow, whatever, we have all these community-based organizations and they could save you this much money or bring you this much money doing what they already do, what they're trained to do, and they're trusted in the community more than you or more than the insurers. And you could really benefit from this and you could really invest in the community like you've been saying. So, you know.
Yeah. So the idea would be that the community-based organizations would deliver a service that makes the population healthier, and that therefore saves the hospital systems, the insurance systems money. Because if I, you know, I should quit smoking, for example, and if there was a program in my community that helped me do that, I'm not going to be rushing to the emergency room with a lung cancer at some point. Okay. Yeah. So how do you find the reaction from these big systems? Because sometimes I feel like they're really hard to penetrate, and then they're really hard to get them to think about. If I feel like they spend $1 to protect a nickel and they don't want to change at all.
No, yeah, that's a great point. And I think the problem is is that there's nobody really advocating for the community-based organizations. And even if that advocacy is done, there's no like proposed system of how it would exactly work. We make this a really easy lift for health systems and insurers. They look at, like, regardless of what they say, they look for ROI.
Yeah.
And so that's where our software comes in too, because we're able to track things, track trends, track savings. And so we're able to talk and really face all the different stakeholders of this, speaking their language. And so we essentially become advocates for value that community-based organizations bring in a way that's easily understood and manageable to them.
Well, I can't wait for you to get back. When you gonna come back?
I'm coming back June 15th, but I really want to start these conversations now so that in August we can kind of hit the ground running. And we have this going up in Flint to a lesser degree. And we're planning on doing a month of testing on a new platform from July to August. So I want to get these conversations started now so that, organizations can reap the benefits of this as fast as possible.
All right, sweet. Yeah, if there's anything we can do, I'm in to try to help out. And I also put HealthOpX.com on the screen because I think you got a really cool model. I mean, it's like drawing in pencil or crayon or something, but it looks really, it's really informative. I thought that little simple model was. So check out HealthOpX.com and look at that, everyone. So what's your mission here? And by the way, I want to go back to the blockchain. Still a great use case and still a great business and still should be happening. But I think there are people working on that. So you were ahead of your time, of course.
Yeah.
But really love that business model. And I loved the health tourism. That's when you and I met because we were working on a BAF, Business Acceleration Fund. And man, that's such a great concept, but seems so complicated.
We were trying to uncomplicate it, but yeah, it is.
And were you going to Korea?
Taiwan, Korea, and then we were gonna expand from there to India and then some European countries, but it never kind of reached that point because the insurance stopped yet.
Yeah. So I think that we also learned, like in Korea, the hospitals can't advertise. So they were trying to get around that with this. I thought that was cool. Yeah. And I also think we learned that Blue Cross Blue Shield was piloting a program with their own employees that would pay for health tourism.
Yeah, I'm surprised you remember that. But yeah, they were because they're trying to save money too. They don't want to pay American prices. And patients don't want to pay American prices either. But unfortunately, that was also a heavy lift for us because a lot of people in America think that America has like the best healthcare system in the world. Like nobody can beat these prices. And I think in some cases, like the dollar spent towards innovation, like that's an advantage. Like with Moderna and everything, the vaccines coming out from the U.S., like and in very specialized cases of cancer, like treatment, but for like the regular person who just needs regular treatment, I don't know. I don't know about that. So.
Well, I think if you haven't traveled, you think that every other place is a third world country that is so far behind, which, it's understandable. That gets pelted at us in every TV show we've ever watched. And by the way, I'm a big fan of you. That's why I remember this stuff. Because I don't know, I would have told you many, many times that, I care about the entrepreneur more than I care about their company. And that I always saw you pivoted 5 times to get to where you're at. And that's perfect. You were listening to the ideas and doing what you were supposed to do. So, yeah, I think you're building strength. Every pivot's a move towards strength. So,
for sure.
And then you've got this constant helping people.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
without giving away what I think your mission might be, what is your mission? How would you summarize it?
So I think the bottom line in every single startup, there's been this underlying mission of creating healthier and more resilient communities, and I think for now, the difference is we want to, and we've seen, the benefits of investing in community resources, the long-term benefits, and getting more money involved in these communities, not just saying, hey, I want to do this program, or sometimes in health and in hospitals or insurance companies will just drop an employee in a community that doesn't really live there, have a personal connection. And so we're like, hey, let's create, stronger, more healthier communities. And I think that's definitely our mission.
And what's something you do every damn day to push that mission forward?
So I think working on this startup, continuously doing customer discovery and learning and seeking knowledge from people where I can learn how to create this ideal, sustainable system. So I think that's what, wakes me up in the morning and what drives me forward to create something completely new that would benefit a lot of people.
So what's something you learned in customer discovery that really surprised you?
So I think that something that I learned in Flint even was that even though people do have smartphones, people are more receptive to SMS text messaging. So so our initial thing, we had an app, and like patients had to download an app. Now you don't need an app to receive services. And so we really only gave that app to community-based organizations because it would help them out, like deliver services, track them. But we got away from that from our pilots because we knew, like, people that are on Medicare, Medicaid, they have smartphones. Like, they're more likely to have a smartphone than a computer at home. And so we're like, oh, it won't be a problem if we do an app. But then, like, people weren't really receptive to push notifications. But if they see a text message, they get that, the serotonin hit in their brain. They want to look at it. So
somebody loves me. I'm thinking through my experience with going to get my vaccine. I signed up on the Ingham County Health Department's website. They sent me a text. I replied yes. They sent me the appointment date. I replied yes. They sent me a reminder, and they did that. We did that twice to get my second dose, but I would not have liked to have downloaded an app, just, especially for that one-time thing.
Right, exactly.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. We always overdo it and try to polish everything for the customer, and the customer just wants simplicity.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
So we daisy chain our shows together. And yesterday on the show, I had a filmmaker, Laura Swanson. She works with human trafficking and survivors of sexual assault and all these great things. And her question for you is, what is one thing that you've done that was absolutely terrifying, but turned out really well?
I think something absolutely terrifying was definitely doing this startup. This was before we had gotten into programs like Conquer Accelerator, or even after Conquer, before getting into Halcyon Incubator right now, which was a long shot. We were 8 of 300 something companies that were chosen across the world to participate in this program. And of those 8, we got accepted into, the HealthWorks program through Blue Cross Blue Shield. So none of this was planned. And the reason why it was so terrifying doing startups is because when you're a social entrepreneur and you don't, you care more about the social impact, or even if you're a regular entrepreneur, it's still hard. You see your bank account dwindling down from your savings from your previous jobs, and you just don't know when the money's going to come in, and so that in itself is terrifying. I think being hungry is is the scariest thing in the world, and not knowing when you could eat next. I think, it was definitely terrifying. That is easily, because it was over extended period of time too. So
did you find, so this is going to be a little bit off topic, but one of the things that we find when we're working like in the poverty space or the food security space, and I don't know if you were using a metaphor or if you were really skipping meals, but you know, talking about being hungry and all of that. In the food security space, once people start looking for where that next meal's coming from, they can't think about getting an education or starting a business or what they're going to do in 2 or 3 years. Did you see that same thing happening to you as like an organization as you got more and more, I don't know, terrified as you're going across the valley of death, if you will? Did you find yourself doing a lot of short-term things when you should have been doing more long-term things, but you just couldn't even fathom it?
I think my co-founders definitely did, and so I became the only full-time person for a while. And so I think for them, they knew what that pain was like, and like for me, you know, also it's just so I think, yeah, we did a lot of things in the short term that we really shouldn't have done. Like I hired an overseas tech team to try to build something out where I should have been looking more sustainable. And now we have a local team. We have a rock star team, you know, now, and we have 7 other people working on this besides me. And so, but because of that, I ended up losing more money and getting more stress and having to throw out a product. So it's definitely a real thing. Like to all the non-believers out there. So
tomorrow on the show, I haven't filled my slot yet. So anybody out there want to come on every damn day tomorrow, let me know. We'll fill the slot. So I still need a question. What question would you like me to pass to my guest that will be tomorrow?
Yeah, so I would say, what are you doing to build healthier communities?
Yeah, and
short and sweet.
You know, we talked a little earlier when we were prepping about whether that question had been asked before, and people talk about stronger communities, but they've never asked specifically about healthier communities. So I'm also going to turn that on you and ask you, you know, what are you doing? I think it's sort of obvious for healthier communities, but also, what do you mean by healthier community?
So even on our website, we talk about social determinants of health. So there's social and economic factors that affect a person's health outside of being sick. So it could be education, environment, food security, job security, just really tackling any kind of issue that really relates to health. And for those of you who don't know, social determinants of health affect 80% of the reason why a person goes to the hospital in the first place. So it's a really broad topic, and there's a lot of ways that you can get involved. And so if you're any kind of community organization, this kind of leads into my segue of taking you out with something. But so I'll just link it up. If you're a community-based organization, like Refugee Development Center, a local church in Lansing, a local nonprofit, United Way, doesn't matter, a government official or someone who cares about bettering the community, feel free to reach out to me and learn how to get involved and how we can set up the system with our software. So,
okay. Health, physical health, mental health, both of them?
Yeah, anything that would affect a person's health. Yeah, the social terms of health, like all of those things kind of wrap up into one. And I think we need to really start looking at people holistically, you know, so, which I'm sure another guest on your show has said for sure.
So when you earlier, just a little bit ago, you said that 80% of hospital visits are because of social deterministic factors.
Yeah.
What is the word?
Social determinants of health.
Social determinants of health.
Yeah. 80% of a reason's person of being sick.
Does that include like nutrition and diet? So all of the different, everything we do as a society that kind of makes us who we are has an impact.
Exactly.
And so what about like so systemic racism?
Mm-hmm.
How I think there's kind of two things that I'm thinking about. One is just that the systemic racism in general is going to drive Black and brown people away from hospitals, away from, checkups, away from getting the insurance that they need or whatever. Then I also think of the stress of systemic racism that they feel every day and the outcome that comes because of that. Like, are these the things you think about all the time now?
I think about, like communities in general. I think we work with a lot of at-risk populations, and that definitely falls in. And even language barrier is something. And stereotypically, Black and brown people get, very drastically different treatment at the doctor's office than anybody else. And if you have a language barrier, obviously that's even worse because now you have so many different barriers to receiving preventative health or even coming in for a checkup or diagnosis. When you come in with the mindset that somebody's not going to believe you or that they say they don't believe you, you completely lose the trust in the system and you end up utilizing the emergency department more than a primary care physician, which ends up costing health systems and insurers a lot of money. So, and I can give a statistic like 5% of the population who are at risk accounts for $1.7 trillion in healthcare spend every year. So they're definitely not doing the best job of taking care of that population.
A few years ago, I read a book called The Abundant Community. I can't remember the two authors, someone Knight and someone, I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. But what they were talking about in the book is that when you look over at a hospital, like I'm pointing at Sparrow right now, but nobody else knows that, that's a medical delivery system. Their medicine and treatment and all of that, but it's really in places like this where healthcare really happens. That's where you talk to people. Hey, I got this thing on my foot and it hurts. What should I do? And maybe there's a cure out in the garden, but maybe it's, I know what that is. You need to go to the doctor and have them do this.
Right.
And I think that got lost somewhere along the lines of when, maybe we had doctors that would come to our homes. And of course, we've got all this technology. We have to go there now. But we lost that love in that community. And I just love what you're doing to kind of restore that. I mean, I'm very happy to hear this latest pivot. Very happy.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely been getting a lot of eyes on this. And the fact that we were sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield in the DMV area is a big tell that they want to get involved in this space. And it's not a far stretch from Michigan's Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the story that you were talking about really reminded me of when David dislocated his finger, and we had everyone came together like, and I was like, man, if you go to the emergency department, I don't know if you could pay that bill because you don't have insurance. Like it might be some hundreds,
That's pretty funny. Because we did tape him up with like duct tape or something.
You definitely should not have. We should not have done that. But it's just proves to show like if we had said like, hey, I know a place and you could get it for this, and then reciprocally, like you as an organization, the Fledge could have gotten paid for some amount of money for referring him to the right place and him getting this proper treatment. It could have been like a very different, but thank God his finger healed correctly. Because if it didn't, he'd be living with a broken finger, his whole life.
He'd be living with a great story his whole life.
Yeah. For sure.
So that's a funny one. What is happiness to you, and are you happy?
Yeah, so happiness to me, I think is working towards being a better person than you were yesterday. I think the feeling of growth makes me happy, and that I'm doing something that I think is worthwhile. And I think I am happy because I think the beauty of being an entrepreneur um, is that you can create your own environment. You can choose who to work with, who to learn from. Um, and I think the freedom or even the illusion of freedom, because I know we're a slave to our schedule sometimes, is something that I've always sought. And since I have that, and I'm able to talk to really cool people from community-based organizations like yourself, or work with the people that I do that really care about the world, is it gives me a lot of energy. So I definitely that I'm very, I consider myself very blessed, for sure.
As so COVID hits, and there's a backlash against the Asian community,
Mhm.
with the all the stupid things that were said about
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
then George Floyd, you know gets
Mhm.
murdered in Minneapolis, and then more recently the Asian, you said, are they hairdressers or nail salons,
Nail salon.
where a lot of them were shot in this black backlash of racism, or I'm not saying that quite right, against Asian Americans. How
Mhm.
how is that? Has that pivoted you in any way? Motivated you more in any way? Affected you in
I
any?
think it has affected me a little bit mentally, but I think what we're doing is really non-discriminatory. We do work with and talk to organizations like Burma Center, and we do talk to other Asian groups, and it is Asian American Heritage Month, um, month of May. But so shout out to that. But I think that it really, I think it really strengthens our cause. I think that we as a community need to come together, because I think it's really easy for even people in the Asian American community or Asian community to really blame other people. I think there's some kind of entity or whatever, or belief out there that wants other minority groups to be pit against each other. And I don't think we can really fall into that trap. I think now more than ever, we need to really support each other's causes. And that's what I see as the way out of this. And I think I can play a good role with that, with our software and our company and our mission. So
I could talk to you about for an hour about what that entity. I want to ask you if that entity is an organization or institution, or is it an algorithm? Because I lean towards it being an algorithm.
I think it's a historical context. I think it's it has a lot of, it may not even be a group or anything. It might just be a system that promotes a
Mhm.
behavior that we aren't really
and
conscious
and
of.
that's what I mean.
We so I think that yeah, I think that it's hard to say,
Mhm.
but I think what we need to do is really come together as a community. I think that's all in all what I'm saying. I think we could go back and forth on what we think it is, but um, but yeah,
Well, it's a bunch of shitty white people, and then all these systems that have been built in that bias.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it could anything from like redlining back in the day to creating segmented communities to the learned behaviors from being in poverty from different laws that came to pass. I think it's not what people think, like the Illuminati or something like that. Like I think it's
Right, right.
things we actually know, but we don't take into context the historical effect that they have on people and trauma today. So um,
So,
yeah.
so what gives you hope?
I think I really love talking to people from community-based organizations. I really want to support them at the end of the day, and seeing people work on something that they're so passionate about that they're willing to stick, put some skin in the game for, regardless of personal gain, is what gives me hope. And the fact that I get to work and talk with these people, as often as I do, is something that really inspires me. So if they're able to do that, then I should be able to work on supporting these people. So I think that's what gives me hope.
I want to show you something. Mona David, say, glad you are coming back to Greater Lansing area, your home base. We appreciate you and what you do. And I'm thinking that same thing. I can't wait. June 15th, 6 weeks. I'll pick you up at the airport.
Yeah, I want to get started on this in Lansing as soon as I can, for sure. So I'm willing to talk to any community-based organization that's interested. So, because I'm going to use that, the traction that we get from that to really present this to the hospitals and insurers the way that I know how to. So
right.
Definitely.
You got to come over, and we've been playing Fledge Coin poker once in a while. So
I miss those poker nights for sure.
Yeah.
I do. Definitely some personalities I miss that are not out here, that are unique to Lansing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back.
We're looking forward to it too. Did we forget to talk about anything?
I think if anything, the program that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
So I'm in a program called Halcyon Incubator. I think I referred Malik actually to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they select a select few entrepreneurs from around the world. We have people in my cohort are from people from all around the U.S. and around the world. And they bring you to this place in Georgetown where you get to live. So I'm actually living in a mansion right now with 6 other entrepreneurs. And you really get to rub shoulders with a lot of people in DC, a lot of influential people. I get to, and every year one company is chosen to be sponsored by HealthWorks, which is the social impact innovation arm of Blue Cross Blue Shield, to be mentored by. And so I'm really taking all of this and bringing it back to the community. I get to talk to a lot of people that have government connections, that have influence over policy. And so really, as you continue to work with us, we become advocates of you guys, whether it's community-based organization or hospital insurance in Michigan or whatever state. So, so I think that was about it.
And what would you like to take us out with?
Yeah, just feel free to reach out to me if you want to be a part of this. And I look forward to bringing it back. And I think Jerry can drop my email somewhere, or you just visit our website and figure out how to be involved.
Okay, so they can contact you right through the website?
Yeah, I think we have my website on there, or my email on the website. I'm just double checking.
Well, I got your email too. If you don't mind me sharing it, I'll put it out.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you come back. Thank you for taking time, for being on the show. Thank you for going out there and representing us out there in DC. And we look forward to working with you when you come back, man.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we'll definitely talk after this too about what we can get set up in the meantime, for sure.
All right.
I'm going to be talking to my. I also get like a free legal services for a year, so I'm meeting with the legal team right after this to try and draw up those contracts specific to what would happen in Lansing. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Then stick with me for a minute after we hang up with everyone. But every damn day at 2, even tomorrow, though I don't have my guests yet. So if you're interested and you've been waiting, tomorrow would be a great day to come on and do your interview with me. So I will see you all later. And thank you again, Wesley, for coming on the show. Appreciate you a lot.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
See ya.